Semper Film, a Black Ocean short story, written by J.S. Morin, narrated by Michael Naramore. A light buzz of conversation and the frequent clink of glassware suggested a formal soiree, and to an extent that might have summed up the gathering. However, even the waitstaff wore military dress uniforms and had security clearance to attend. Call out "General," and half the room would have turned ahead to see whether someone meant them. Cassius Bricker, a lowly major, was outranked by anyone not toting a tray of champagne or hauling chafing dishes. Yet, their attention, from his CO all the way up to the Commandant of the Earth Marine Corps, focused on the man of the hour. It didn't feel real. These people didn't outrank him anymore. They couldn't give him orders. Sure, if someone ordered him to take out a busboy, he'd probably have the poor sap in a sleeper hold before his conscious mind registered that he didn't have to obey. "You handling this, Major?" General Zhao asked, sidling up and helping him exchange his empty champagne glass for a full one from a passing tray. "Not really, sir. I have free time tomorrow, and I'll be damned if I know what to do with it." The general chuckled. She wagged a finger from her drinking hand. "Take my advice. Spend it with that girlfriend of yours." Bricker watched the crowd. Any time someone caught him looking, they offered a nod, a wave, or a toast. He took a sip of his champagne, wondering whether it even mattered whether he got totally smashed. Then he wondered whether the catering corps had brought enough alcohol for the job. "Wendy isn't even on Earth. She got shipped out to Batono Tapo. Need to know status. No ETA on getting back here." He told the story like it was a debriefing, but Major Cassius Bricker gave it. Not this new version of him. "If you want, I can maybe pull a few strings." Bricker waved her off. "I'm not going to be that guy. Operational secrecy saves lives. She always understood when it was me." "Buck up, civilian," Zhao told him. "Swing by my office at 0900 hours tomorrow. My people have something to discuss with you." "Sir?" "Hey, no need for the sir." Bricker threw back the rest of his champagne in a gulp. "If it's all right with you, I'd like to hang on to that sir a while longer." "Have it your way." The general excused herself to hobnob with the other senior officers of Earth Marine Corps. Bricker allowed himself to float among the guests, making small talk and downing champagne slower than his gene-modded liver metabolized it. When he'd stayed long enough to be polite, a security detail flew him to a safe house he'd been using as an apartment in Geneva Prime. The sparse furniture and whiff of industrial cleansers in the air gave it an almost barracks-like feel. Almost. If there was something this barracks lacked, it was soldiers. The chatter, the sweat, the snoring, the warring brands of aftershave. Circumstances had changed up the tune from time to time. Deployments to different planets, shipboard assignments. Eventually, he'd warranted private quarters due to his rank. But he'd joined the Corps the day he turned 18, and tonight had been a funeral for his career, not a retirement party. Bricker fell asleep after hours of staring at a blank ceiling, knowing that when he awoke, it would be his first day as something he hadn't been his entire adult life. A civilian. The safe house's closet had been outfitted with an array of standard civilian clothing. Bricker went with a white dress shirt and suit with no tie. Undercover assignments had always used clip-ons for safety, and he'd never learned the knots. There was a time and a place for learning new skills, and he wasn't spending the morning watching omnivids on fashion macrame. Another Special Services hover picked him up around back. Since arriving back on Earth, he doubted that 10 civilians had put eyes on him. "Major Bricker?" A plainclothes officer greeted him inside with a nod. Feels wrong hearing it now. The Special Services guy smirked and offered him a travel mug that wafted coffee aromas. Sorry, Major. You can go buy whatever you like out there. Too many of us on this side know what you've done for Earth. Any clues what this is about? Bricker asked, taking a swallow of coffee and approving of the military-grade Joe. He asked offhandedly because he doubted he'd get answers. These were the kind of people who doled out information like a doctor prescribing medication. Too much was as bad as too little. His escort shook his head. I'm on transportation this morning. My debrief covered a point A, a point B, passenger ID, and security checklist. Sorry, that's about all I've got for small talk. Earth been having any weather lately? It was a spacer joke, and his escort chuckled politely. They pulled into a garage. It was all of 5 meters to the elevator. A pair of uniformed Marine corporals rode up with him. They didn't salute, but Bricker could tell they were fighting an instinct to do so. General Zhao greeted him with a handshake at the end of the ride. Good morning, Major. Glad to have you with us. Bricker grinned. Didn't seem like a choice. Always a choice now. But I think we've got something cooked up that you're going to like. When the general strode off down a corridor, Bricker fell into step beside her. When do I get to find out what this is all about? You ever heard of a diversion program for veterans who might not be suited to boring civilian life? Rumors. Scuttlebutt. Never gave it much thought or much credence. Seemed a little far-fetched. Intentionally. Bricker cocked his head as they approached a double door that opened as they drew near. Sir? General Zhao stood aside and swept a hand for him to precede her. Inside, behind a glossy black desk, was a Laku wearing shader lenses indoors. The Laku set the shaders aside and hopped down to greet him. Hey, Cassius Bricker! Your service record doesn't do you justice. Because it's redacted so heavily? Bricker suggested. He accepted a firm handshake and joined General Zhao in taking a seat across from the desk as the Laku seated himself. Nah, I've got clearance for all the good stuff. I mean, there are numerical listings for height and weight that you just can't process in the abstract. But you're right, General. This guy's going to be perfect. Perfect for what? Who are you? Where are my manners? Ira of Los Angeles Prime. I'm the guy who's taken you to Hollyworld. How long Bricker sat there, struggling to make sense of that statement, he couldn't say. The silence lingered long enough that Ira launched into a pitch. Hollyworld, land of opportunity, fame, fortune, women. I'm in a long-term relationship. Bricker turned to the general. What's this about? You putting me out to pasture in the hollows? What about the death threats? The corporate bioweapons people, the colonial rebels? This is the solution. We hide you in plain sight. I'm not connecting the dots. I'm not exactly inconspicuous to begin with. But this? Ira tapped something on a console behind his desk and spoke into a comm. Gracie, send him in. Send who in? A side door shushed open, and a brawny tower of humans stepped inside. Major Bricker, it's an honor, sir, he saluted. Ira swept a hand out. Meet the new Cassius Bricker. What? General Zhao intervened before things got out of hand. This is Sergeant Gabe Cross. He's within a certain margin of your dimensions and bone structure. After a few medical treatments, you two could be twins. Bricker was already shaking his head. I don't like any of this. Ira snickered in that whiny, reedy Laku way that raised the hair on the back of a human's neck.
That's the best part. There's no surgery. We ship you both off to a med facility in Stockholm, separately. But with security just loose enough that certain individuals see you both arrive and depart. But afterward, for about 2 days, we have Sergeant Cross go by the name Cassius Bricker before we give him a new ID and send him off to break up with your girlfriend.
I'll be a perfect gentleman, Cross assured him, clearly forewarned of this plan. Wendy's not an idiot.
Of course not, General Zhao snapped. Lieutenant Wendy Abernathy was instrumental in arranging this cover. Half the details came from her.
They did? She knew? Bricker felt a lump in his throat. They'd hardly seen one another in months. Never been together for more than a few days at a time when they could get their leaves to line up. Had she grown so tired of him that she helped the Corps break them up for good? Ira snapped his fingers.
Earth to Bricker, your girlfriend didn't sell you out. What's more natural a bounce back than hooking up with a Hollyworld hunk who looks suspiciously like a Rex?
What happens to me? I look like me, but this guy takes my name? Who am I then?
You'll be going by Gordon Swan, a colonial nobody who died in an unreported shipwreck a few weeks back. But don't get attached to the name. Mr. Swan was on his way to make it in Hollyworld. Well, our version of him anyway. But you're going to come in, change your name to something with a little Hollyworld glitz, and make Hollows quietly backed by Uncle Sol.
Wouldn't it be cheaper and easier for the Corps to just use civilian witness protection? This sounded so convoluted, so cockamamie, it could only have come through the intelligence services.
That's the best part! Well, from a financial perspective anyway,
Ira explained.
We make money at this. I started this program 5 years ago with a lot of skeptics who were more concerned with the stars on their shoulders than the ones on their hollow projectors. Program pays for itself and then some. Earth Marine Corps, Earth Navy, and Earth Interstellar Enhanced Investigative Org all have stakes in major studios through shell companies I helped set up.
Who are you?
Like I said, Ira of Los Angeles Prime.
Bricker shook his head. No, really. Not your alias.
Fine. Technically, I'm from Burbank.
Bricker turned to General Zhao as his only hope for sanity here. Sir, you can't possibly endorse this. I pretend to be a holovid star? Take charity via shell companies? Some random stranger walks off with my name? Then he glanced over at Sergeant Cross. No offense, Marine. None taken, sir.
It's not charity, General Zhao assured him. Ira knows his shit. He's got your service record. He thinks you can be an actual star. Not a major one, Ira clarified. Low to mid-budget action. Do your own stunts, ham it up, let that natural charisma ooze out.
What kind of background do you even have for this? Ira smirked. His jovial demeanor slipped into a stone-cold glare. I served 20 years in Earth Navy intelligence. You've been in long enough that you definitely ran missions on intel I provided. But I saw a need for an outlet for vets who didn't quite come out of the service 100%. I came up with this program. I got my agent's license, worked my way up, started my own firm. Then I brought top brass in on it. Wait. You actually are a Hollyworld agent?
This might not be charity work from Uncle Sol's perspective, but sure as hell is from mine. I represent more than 50 actors, writers, and directors. I don't do producers. Producers are too high maintenance. Only a handful are part of this program. And I'm looking to add one more.
The lifestyle floated ephemerally at the edges of his ability to conceptualize. Lights, camera, action. Was that what came next? Desk work hadn't suited him. 3 months shuffling data for Earth Marine Corps had driven him to retirement. What career options did he have? Most civilian jobs were either at a desk or grunt labor. An actor. Me? General Zhao placed his decision in a starker light.
Look, our backup plan for you is a farming colony. We can either hide you in plain sight with some deception and misdirection, or you can get acquainted with the ins and outs of the latest in low-phosphate hydroponic potatoes.
Bricker cleared his throat. Well, when you put it that way, I suppose I'll take fame and fortune. Gordon Swan lasted all of 2 days. After arriving in Los Angeles Prime and renting what, for Earth, was a cheap apartment, he booked a meeting with Ira as if the two hadn't arranged it ahead of time. An audition later, and he was the replacement for the recently fired star of Six Gun Caballero. Freshly registered with the Hollywood Actors Guild and sporting a new stage name, Wesley Wesley showed up on set. They gave him dungarees, chaps, boots with spurs, a gun belt, and a hat. Oh, and of course, a datapad with the script.
You memorized that yet?
Diana Marshall asked curtly as she strode past, trailed by a gaggle of production assistants. The director was in her late 40s with data goggles and her hair in a messy bun. She wore dress slacks, heels, and a sleeveless blouse. The blazer that matched her slacks had gone missing since first thing that morning. "Should be good, ma'am." Wesley gave a tip of his hat, which seemed in keeping with his character, Adolphus Karpov.
Places, people!
The director bellowed, voice amplified over speakers scattered throughout the set.
Go get 'em, killer,
Ira said under his breath, prodding Wesley forward with a lower hand. The newly anointed Hollow Star trotted out to a spot marked with a laser X in the middle of a dusty ancient West road between rows of ramshackle wooden buildings. If he kept his field of vision narrow, he could almost believe he was in a replica theme park version of 1870s Montana. But glance even slightly askew, and he could spot scaffolding holding up building facades for the saloon and sheriff's office, the camera crews, and the warehouse-style studio in which they were shooting. Ira hissed at him for attention, then made a waggling gimme gesture. Belatedly, Wesley flung him the datapad containing his script.
Action!
A saloon door swung open with a bang. Dressed all in black, Victor Meacham, actually a pretty genial guy named Billy playing that role, exited, pistol in hand.
Adolphus Karpov, this town ain't big enough for the two of us.
Wesley drew his prop pistol and squeezed the trigger. A red laser dot appeared on Meacham's vest.
Cut!
Quickly realizing that this was a scene, not a tactical drill, Wesley hastily holstered his weapon. "Sorry, ma'am. Instinct." It took a couple minutes to reset everything back to where it had been. Details like a rolling tumbleweed in the background and townsfolk peeking out windows, which he'd overlooked the first time around, were on full display as he stood there waiting.
Action!
This time they got as far as the shootout. Diana shouted from the sidelines, presumably either off mic or to be edited out.
Just give us a clean draw. We can speed it up in post so it looks quick.
However, there wasn't a quicker set of hands in the Corps, and only a few buddies had been close. At a twitch of Billy's wrist muscles, Wesley had his gun out and fired.
Cut!
"Was there a problem?" he asked.
You've got to let him draw. That looked like you cheated.
"But I just—"
Let's try it again.
Wesley swallowed a sour lump in his throat. If these had been real blasters, or even real lead throwers, and this was a live fire exercise, Billy would have been sleeping in a pine box that night. He was supposed to be the hero of this hollow. Ira had assured him of that much. But he apparently could look too good at the job.
Action!
This time Wesley waited too long. After a brief discussion of the timing Diana was looking for, they set up once more and got everything ready.
Action!
Wesley got the timing perfect, but multiple attempts with a flimsy prop was too much. The handle of the six-shooter snapped in his grip. By lunchtime, Diana declared that they could cobble the scene together in editing. "You did great out there," Billy assured him over ham and cheese sandwiches from the craft services table. "Just give it your best every take. Let the production crew handle the rest. You don't need to understand the story or the blocking or the lights or any of that crap. We're here for personality and emotion." "Thanks, but I felt like I was holding up everything out there." Billy chuckled. "Oh, don't worry about it. We get paid the same whether it's one take or 100. But the crew, well, they're hourly. Feeling out a scene now and then stretches out their employment." Diana breezed in with a half-eaten takeout burrito and a datapad she used one-handed. She spotted Wesley.
"You, with me. Bring the lunch."
Wesley took orders without question. Giving Billy a nod, returned graciously, he scooped up the final 3 sandwiches of his lunch along with his energy water and followed. They ended up in a hallway outside the set area. On a row of folding chairs, a number of attractive, burly, clean-cut gentlemen awaited them. Diana moved down the line, sizing up each in turn, glancing back at Wesley repeatedly.
"Hey!"
Ira called out, ambling down the hall from the far side.
"I got you, Calm. I can save you some trouble."
Diana didn't so much as glance the Lockhoo's direction.
"Great," she deadpanned. "You got a second batch of stunt doubles. Your new boy's hard to match. Steve can work miracles, but he needs a starting point."
"Stunt doubles? Steve?" Wesley asked.
"Making it look like the same Adolphus Karpov that walks into the saloon is the one who beats up Victor Meacham's gang. Steve handles all the visual effects." "Sorry, gentlemen,"
Ira told the assembled candidates to replace Wesley in the action scenes.
"My boy here does his own stunts."
"Really?" Diana sounded skeptical.
"He can barely quick draw."
Ira raised a finger.
"Ah, but he's well-trained in hand-to-hand stage fighting."
Wesley knew better than to contradict his agent and handler, but he furrowed his brow. Diana huffed.
"Well, unless I can find an Azran bodybuilder in the next half hour, he's going to have to do."
Zach was a wiry 50-something with a salt-and-pepper ponytail and a tight black T-shirt. He held court at the center of an assembly of duded-out cowboys and saloon staffers who hung on his words and expansive gestures.
"And then Olaf and Mabry heave the poker table. Make sure you act like it weighs about 15 kilos and is actually wood. Adolphus dodges aside, ready to punch anyone who comes at him. But Jake gets him from behind, tries to hold him for Tucker and Big Jimmy to shank him with a broken whiskey bottle. Adolphus turns and throws an elbow, breaks free, then bolts for the stairs. Then we'll cut and pick up later with the fight up the stairs. Got it?"
Heads bobbed, including Wesley's. All seemed pretty straightforward. Not the best way to win a fight, but it would probably look better than snapping off a table leg and beating everyone to death with it. At least it would work better for this type of hollow anyway. Jake took Wesley aside as people were getting into position.
"I'll have you around the neck. It gets too tight. A quick double tap on the forearm, I'll let go instantly. All right?"
"Got it. And I'll try not to actually hit you with the elbow."
"No, man. I have a flip to do. Gotta sell it like you clobbered me, sent me spinning. Catch me with the fleshy part of your tricep, and I'll turn with the momentum. Use it for the flip."
"You sure?" Jake patted him on the cheek.
"Been at this a long time, rookie. I'll look great in the finished product."
They all drifted into their locations. When Diana poised to start the scene, everyone composed themselves into a saloon crowd.
"Action!"
Wesley drank a swig of the carbonated apple juice, pretending to be his ale. Victor's goon instigated a fight over a game of cards. A fight broke out. Adolphus was caught in the middle. He punched past Tucker, and the stuntman playing him snapped his head like Wesley had connected. A foam chair smashed over Wesley's head, shattering into pre-cut pieces. Then Jake came up behind Wesley and wrapped him in a chokehold on the pretense of holding him in place as a punching bag for the others. Easily breaking the grasp, Jake could barely reach Wesley's neck, let alone get any leverage on the lock. Wesley turned an elbow and, "Cut!" Diana marched onto the set. "What was that? We doing synchronized swimming out there? You were moving like you were underwater." "I didn't want to." "Tut, tut, tut! Don't explain. Speed it up. Roll it back and let's do this again." "Oh, good," Jake assured him. "I need the kinetic energy for the flip. If I wind up for it, it looks fake. I've got a plant foot and a little help from the other, but a good 80% of the momentum I need is coming from you." "Sorry, just don't want to hurt you." "I'm a pro. I know how to stay inside your reach so you don't catch me with the point of your elbow. Give me all you got." Wesley took a deep breath. While this whole Hollyworld thing had thus far seemed like a bunch of dilettantes and fakery, Jake's confidence reassured him. These were actors playing a part. Well, to an extent they were, but more than that, they were trained stunt professionals performing feats of choreographed acrobatics to fit a narrative. "Roger that." Jake burst out laughing. "Don't go all military on me. Maybe a howdy or something." "Action!" Punch, fake reaction, chair over the head, bear hug. Wesley broke free and snapped his elbow around. Jake's jaw connected with his tricep. He felt the crack. Jake went down in a heap. "Medic!" Wesley looked down in horror. Jake lay with his neck twisted at a gruesome angle. Chaos broke out on set. Extras scattered. People screamed and shouted. Wesley backed away to let the paramedics through. Someone rushed up with a hover stretcher. A hand took him by the arm. "Come on, you big lug. Let's get you someplace quiet to sit. He'll be fine." "I killed him," Wesley muttered hollowly as Ira of Los Angeles Prime guided him away. "I killed poor Jake." Ira could try all he wanted to cushion the news, but Wesley knew how it felt to end a life. Production broke for the day. Wesley changed into civilian clothes and returned to his apartment. He still hadn't furnished it beyond the limited accoutrements it had come with. There was a basic holo projector, but he couldn't so much as look at it. Without having ordered anything, 6 pizzas showed up at his door around dinner time, along with a 6-pack of some halfway decent Martian beer. Not even finishing his 4th pizza, Wesley couldn't take it any longer. He had a datapad, but he'd shut it off on the ride back to the apartment. Using a kitchen knife, he popped the back off the case. Disassembling the coffee maker, he pulled apart circuit boards and stripped down the power supply until he was able to construct a low-output welder capable of functioning as a soldering iron. Half an hour later, he had a modified unit that no longer broadcast location data. Wesley punched in a comm ID from memory. "Who is this?" The voice melted the knot of anxiety in Wesley's heart. Wendy was his rock. Whether he was Cassius Bricker or Wesley Wesley didn't matter. She was the foundation of his life. The core had formerly been one of the pillars holding him up, but alone, he wasn't strong enough right now to bear the weight. "It's me." "What part of calm silence did you miss in the briefing?" Wesley heaved a sigh. "The part where I don't have to obey orders anymore? Listen, I just needed to hear you." "What happened?" Wesley offered a wan smile that the voice-only comm wasn't conveying. She never bullshitted. Straight to the point. "First day on set, and I killed someone." "Jesus. Did you burn your cover? Do I need to worry about blowback?" "Nothing like that. It was an accident. Stunt gone wrong. I was supposed to actually hit him, and..." "They had you actually hit someone?
Who the fuck authorized that? There are civilian model blasters less dangerous than your fists.
It was a tricep. Supposed to help a guy do a flip or something. He was behind me, and I swung, and
It was an accident.
I said I killed him, not murdered him. They're not even involving the police.
Hey, freak accidents happen.
Because I'm a freak. Wesley wandered to the window and looked out over L.A. Prime. An array of glittering lights represented millions of people. He could have killed any one of them in hand-to-hand combat. It wasn't ego telling him that either. He was a machine made for war. Looking human was merely coincidence. Maybe I don't belong in civilian life.
Don't give me that shit. Hey, you secure on your end?
It's Earth. This was a mixed bag. Law enforcement had a stranglehold on the planet. That didn't mean Wesley's privacy was guaranteed. It only meant that anyone listening in likely had either a badge or a rank.
Fine, then listen up. I've got a date tonight with Cassius. I'm planning to break up with him. But if you turn into a quitter, so help me, I'll patch things up and make them work with him. Is that understood?
Wesley forced a smile. Wendy wouldn't see it, but somehow she'd know. Copy that, Lieutenant.
Abernathy out.
The comm ended. There was a chime from Wesley's door. He hastily stuffed the modified datapad into the silverware drawer, then, realizing the other evidence, stowed the remains of the coffee maker in the cabinet under the sink.
Hey, big guy!
Ira greeted him as the door slid open.
How are you holding up?
Wesley stood aside and let his agent enter. I don't know if this is going to work out.
Come off it! It was one incident.
I'd like to reach out to Jake's family. I should do it in person. Can you put something together? Ira snorted and helped himself to a slice of pizza.
How long you been off-world anyway?
How do you mean? Wesley cocked his head.
You're acting like you killed the guy. They brought him to Kaiser Galactic. I'd tell you to go visit if you're feeling guilty, but I imagine they've discharged him by now.
Discharged? Ira gave the beers a glance before heading to the fridge and pilfering one of Wesley's energy waters.
Fuck's sake! It's Earth! Not just Earth, but L.A. Paramedics got him on ice. Class 1 Trauma Center reconnected his spine, sorted out all the nerves, and reopened his windpipe. Probably a bunch of other shit, but what am I, a doctor?
So he's going to be okay?
Okay? He's going to be at work tomorrow. That's why I'm here. Diana's PAs couldn't get a hold of you, so they calmed me. I'm here to tell you that your call time is 0900 tomorrow, which these civilians will try to tell you is 9:00 a.m.
We're going right back to shooting? And they want me back?
Want you back? You've got a contract. Jake's got a contract. The two of you will be there tomorrow morning. They're shuffling the schedule to make up for losing this afternoon, but this tram doesn't stop for long. Debris on the rail? Clear it off and get 'em moving again.
Wesley sagged in relief. You sure I'm cut out for this?
Not at all.
Wesley blinked his surprise at Ira's answer.
Sulking and whining don't suit you. Didn't suit the old you, and I don't think you should incorporate it as some kind of bit into the new you. So pull yourself together, get a night's sleep, and show up for work in the morning. Got it?
Wesley gave a tentative salute. Yes, sir. The next morning, Wesley arrived on set at 0600 hours. None of the other actors were there, just some of the crew getting things set up. He even brought coffee for everyone since craft services wouldn't be providing breakfast for another half hour. He loitered out of the way as grips moved cameras, the set dressers arranged plastic liquor bottles that looked like vintage glass, and production assistants shuffled chairs around for the director and actors who weren't in a given scene. By the time the stunt team started showing up for work, Wesley was ready to pounce. Jake was already fielding congratulations and well wishes from his coworkers when Wesley swooped in. He offered a coffee made just the way Jake liked it, according to the production crew. "Jake, so glad you're all right. You can't believe how sorry I am for—"
Hey, no worries.
"You think this is the first time I've pulled an Immelmann turn on the way to that heavenly light?" He chuckled, continuing down the hall toward makeup and wardrobe.
You want a word of advice? Read the medical clause in your contract. Any place without access to a top-tier trauma center, I don't sign.
Wesley lowered his voice and put an arm gently around Jake's shoulders. "You feel like taking some leave. I'll back you." Jake eased the larger man's arm off him. He guided their roving conversation down a side hallway temporarily cluttered with saloon furniture.
You don't need to worry about me, sir.
Hairs rose on the back of Wesley's neck. "You don't need to call me sir. I'm just paid help around here, same as you." Jake clapped him on the shoulder. He offered a conspirator's wink.
No worries, sir. I won't let you down. And your secret's safe with me.
This was supposed to be a covert op. No one but Ira supposedly knew his real identity. "What's going on here? Who are you with?" Jake grinned.
Don't blame you not remembering me. Appalachia Colony, the Curtis Rebellion back in 41. I was doing my compulsory too in the colonial militia, just a grunt. But they had us pinned down in the capital until you boys showed up to kick 'em back into the foothills and get 'em to surrender. You saved our asses. And, frankly, sir," he gestured up and down Wesley, "you leave quite an impression."
There was a contingency for this. He remembered his briefings. Deny that he was Cassius Bricker. Hint that he was a decoy. Never say it, but heavily imply that the real Bricker was lying on a beach on a paradise planet, sipping Mai Tais and surrounded by gorgeous women. That all sounded like purgatory, but it was the cover story. But Wesley saw the admiration in Jake's eyes, saw a man who'd all but died yesterday and still showed up for work because he was there. Hell, by some medical definitions, Jake probably had been dead a while. Ira had coached him on exactly what to say. "Well, for killing you yesterday, let's call it even. Mind stowing the sir and keep it under your helmet?"
Gotcha, bud.
He clapped Wesley on the arm.
Thanks for the coffee. Let's get out there today and have some brawls.
"See you out there," Wesley said with a smile and a wave as the two parted ways to each prepare for their day. For Jake, presumably that meant getting costumed for the 19th century and checking in with Billy for the day's stunt agenda. For Wesley, his day needed a slight detour to a supply closet first. His comm connected almost instantly. "Ira, I need you on set. We've got a problem." There was no shooting of the saloon scene that morning. Wesley rode a horse on a conveyor belt in front of a blank backdrop, recited a bunch of dusty old lines, and generally met the minimum viable output of a professional actor. In the background, casting put out feelers for one spare cowboy-era outlaw to replace Jake. That evening, Wesley stopped by a palatial Malibu Prime home just a 3-minute hover ride from the studio. For what had to have been a 500-square-meter abode, there was only one person there when he arrived. Ira met Wesley at the door, dressed in a smoking jacket and carrying a martini glass filled with something that smelled like a health food store.
Come on in. Welcome to Casa del Ira. Make yourself at home.
Wesley had been plenty of fancier places, but most were owned by governments, warlords, or industrialists. For an ex-Navy intelligence officer, Ira was doing more than all right for himself. Sorry about how this all went down.
You're sorry? You're sorry? I've been on secure comms half the afternoon. I've chewed out so many asses my jaw is sore. Sloppy shit like this didn't happen when I was doing the vetting. Coworkers are second circle associates. No one within your third circle should have ever seen the other guy. And that list includes people you might say hi to on the way to grab your morning coffee.
Wesley took Ira up on his advice to make himself at home and headed for the fridge. If you're at liberty to tell me, I need to know. What's going to happen to him?
You mean the colonial soldier who happened to remember the face of a gorilla-sized Marine who saved his life? Let's just say there's room in the budget for little snafus like this.
Wesley couldn't read the labels on most of the beverages. He'd have at least recognized Kajathi characters. Maybe it was Senek or possibly Tebinese. The contents were a series of colorful mysteries. He tentatively popped a bottle open and took a sniff. When an overwhelming scent of avocado hit the back of his sinuses, he quickly capped it again. You're paying him off?
It's not a payoff. It's an upwardly lateral career shift. He rethinks his brush with death, takes a week of inpatient counseling, basically an excuse for a thorough debrief. Then we set him and his wife up on Ganymede. Jake's an outdoorsy guy. He'll be operating a dude ranch, teaching tourists how to throw lassos and not fall off a trotting horse. And I've got beer in the wine fridge for guests.
Under the kitchen island, Wesley found the wine fridge and grabbed a domestic pale ale from inside. While he might not get drunk off it, chugging fast enough could get him a little bit of a buzz. He borrowed Ira's corkscrew to shotgun the can. So Jake's going to be all right.
Yeah, Jake's fine. It's you I'm worried about. Your girl's got about a 3-day timeline scheduled to ditch your decoy and a month before she gets stationed back on Earth. You going to hold out that long?
Wesley shook his head as he retrieved a second can. I don't know. It all seems so phony.
It is phony. People love phony. There's moolah in phony, and not to put too fine a point on it, you're in need of a healthy dose of phony right now.
Ira made his way over to a couch that had a panoramic view of the Pacific Ocean and patted the seat beside him.
But look, if it's not your thing, we can work with that. Stick it out a couple years. You'll be less than a flash in the pan. Maybe more like that little click when the survival sparker doesn't like the first try. And you and Wendy can get married.
Hey, how'd you know about that? Wesley took the seat beside Ira with 3 more beers along as backups.
You bought the ring legally. How could we not? She's got a future in the diplomatic corps lined up. You can slide into the role of the supportive big lug in the background of her career. Even if most of the people in your life think you're a washed-up never-was, she'll know that you're a retired Marine hero. Maybe that'll be enough for you.
Wesley sighed and downed another beer. Not sure I'm really cowboy material.
I'm your agent,
Ira replied with an indifferent shrug.
That's good feedback. I'll try you in a few different genres. I package projects for the studio so I can massage the pitches pretty easy. Maybe get you into some archaeologist action popcorn flicks or some contemporary revenge hollows. But I've got this feeling you're teed up to be typecast.
As... Wesley cringed, hoping it wasn't as a romantic lead.
Face it. You look like a retro sci-fi space commando. There's a trend toward 23rd century aesthetic space pieces. I'll try to feed you a little variety, but I suspect you're going to be punching a lot of humans in budget-friendly xenomasks. You up for that?
Wesley's life flashed before his eyes. Make cheap Hollywood schlock by day, hear stories of Wendy making the galaxy a better place every night. He'd done his part. Maybe he could leave it at that. Wendy would understand. All right, let's do this. Six months later, Wesley straightened his tie in the mirror as Carol worked on his hair. His suit was a ragazzone. His wingtips were made from the finest replica crocodile leather. The wedding ring was a simple hoop of gold, but it was worth more than the wardrobe, the fame, and the money coming in as his wobbly career got off the ground. He tucked it back in a pocket. Ira's people had been fine with the wedding so long as it stayed out of any official records. A production assistant ducked in from the hallway.
"You're on, Mr. Wesley."
Carol gave his hair a last-second fuss and remanded Wesley to the custody of the show's staffers. He strode down the corridors with the air of a man who'd been shot at by 12 different species and couldn't bother fearing cameras. As he drew near, a series of hand signals and curt comms coordinated the preparations for his arrival on a different sort of set. Just as he entered the wings, the host teed him up.
"Our next guest is the star of Six Gun Caballero, here to promote his upcoming Hollow City of Gold and Guns, appearing in Hollow theaters across the core starting this Friday. Please welcome Wesley Wesley!"
On cue, Wesley emerged onto stage to the canned applause of a simulated audience. A neon sign on the wall behind the host and guest chairs identified this as Late Night with Paperback. Ira had promised him that this was an up-and-coming show that would help boost his fledgling career. Paperback of Corinth 6 was a grating, nagging, passive-aggressive piece of shit, but Wesley was learning to put up with several varieties of sentient creatures who'd have been chewed up and spit out of Earth Marine Corps. He waved to the theoretical crowd that he and the host were both supposed to pretend were watching live. Then he took his chair and crossed his legs. "Great to be here, Paperback."
"Wesley, do you mind if I call you Wesley?"
This was a bit they'd prepped him for. "Sure. It's both my names. Seems a shame to waste it."
Super. Wesley, tell me, what's it like moving from the potato farms of Appalachia Colony to Hollyworld stardom?
Wesley paused just long enough to appear thoughtful. "Well, back home I used to handle a lot of manure. And now, through filming 2 Hollows, I've yet to spot a real difference." That had been scripted, too. Ira had warned him that Paperback had a penchant for gotcha questions and to be ready for him. But there was a dance to this. The guy couldn't ambush him right out of the gate. Some degree of rapport was required before the audience would care about the trap question.
"Tell us a little about City of Gold and Guns."
"Well, Paperback, imagine a world where El Dorado was not only real, but had been discovered by 3 rival crews of time-traveling outlaws. I play Bert Hammond, a 2-bit 23rd century criminal who steals Jules Verne's original time machine from a museum, only to find that it can run on Zappo Cola. So I take the time machine, stock up on Zappo Cola, and head off to make my fortune on history's biggest score. But 2 other groups of time travelers have the same idea, and their time machines work on the same principle. So we're all trying to secure the sole supply of Zappo Cola, grab as much gold as our time machines can carry, and get back to our own times with it." Zappo Cola's sponsorship deal required that Wesley mention them by name at least 3 times per interview.
"I can only guess how that turned out,"
Paperback said, wiggling his brow like there was some hidden meaning there. "Gotta go see it to find out." Of course, Wesley's character had siphoned the soda from his rivals and gotten away with the gold. He was the one out doing media tours for the movie. Stan Grenning and Julianne Noyen were off working on their next projects already. Naturally, they hadn't gotten the treasure. Pablek leaned close, but didn't lower his voice one iota.
Speaking of seeing and finding, I've heard some funny rumors out there about your past.
I swear, anything interesting about my past is just guerrilla PR.
What about the one where you're a super soldier commando from a top-secret military program?
Images flashed through Wesley's mind of stuffing Pablek in a sack and flushing him out an airlock between star systems. Outwardly, he grinned. I'll admit it. I work out. But I'm just a product of great genes and heavy agricultural equipment. Parents, consider raising your kids out in the border colonies. Fresh air makes them grow.
We've contacted alumni at your high school, and none of them remember you.
That's sad to hear.
Neither do any of the athletic coaches who were there at the time.
I was a big kid. Didn't seem fair to play.
In fact, we couldn't locate anyone able to corroborate your backstory.
Wesley smirked to hide his fury. He supposed it shouldn't have surprised him. This was a retirement favor, not a matter of Argo defense. But Ira's people had fucked him again, not at least putting a few plants in place to back up his personal history. He was going to have to bail himself out if he didn't want to get saddled with another new identity. Look, what are the alternatives here? That I was a somewhat forgettable, shy, gentle giant who came out of his shell and packed on muscle and charm these past 20-odd years? Or that I'm some science experiment that broke free of a secret military facility and started making holovids in a mind-bogglingly incompetent attempt to hide from recapture? Seriously, oof! Why even dig a hole in a minefield like that? Your best-case scenario is the one where you look like a crackpot. And the worst one, you get a visit from people I'd like to believe don't even exist. Pablek stared, momentarily lost for words, then quickly recomposed himself.
Ha! Nice one! One thing you're going to have to get used to in showbiz is people making up crazy rumors and spreading them all over the Omni.
Oh, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I know who I am, and I'm happy to just be a colonial transplant living the human dream.
Cut for commercial! Great segment,
Pablek congratulated him. Wesley heard the unease behind the slick facade. One of the PAs retrieved the mic from his lapel as they prepped him for departure to make room for a new guest after the break.
Good luck with the holo.
Rather than retreat off stage the way he'd come and the way the production team was trying to herd him, Wesley crossed past the host. As he leaned down to whisper to Pablek, Wesley grabbed him by the suit jacket, his hand muffling the tiny mic pinned to the lacou. Lucky for you, I'm not a Special Forces operative put out to pasture in Hollyworld. Then, releasing his grasp, he tugged the wrinkles from the lacou's suit. Good luck with this show of yours. Real potential. Be a shame if it went off the star waves before its time. With that, Wesley let himself be escorted back to the green room.
We good?
Wendy asked. She'd been watching the live feed, which was still going with Pablek interviewing some local celebrity. Her tone made it clear that she meant his cover ID. Wesley offered his arm, and Wendy took it. The crazy stories some people dream up. Let's go grab a bite, then enjoy a sunset somewhere.
It's 3 hours past sunset. You good with racing west to catch up to one?
Babe, there's no point chasing the past. Let's blast eastward and grab a sunrise instead. Remember, there's always a bright future ahead of us. Thanks for listening to this Black Ocean adventure. This mission may be over, but there's plenty more for you to enjoy. For more magical mischief in the 26th century, search Black Ocean on your favorite audiobook store or visit blackoceanmissions.com. This has been Semper Film, a Black Ocean short story. Written by J.S. Morin. Narrated by Michael Naramore. Copyright 2023 by J.S. Morin. Production copyright 2023 by J.S. Morin.